Warm greetings from the High 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans on this Sunday, June 1st, 2020. Mercy. What is to become of this nation? Uproar in the United States with the death of George Floyd. I want to bring you said information about Mr. Floyd. I also would like to talk about other cases that have stemmed a lot of outrage pertaining to Breonna Taylor and Mr. Ahmaud Arbery. And I'm going to tie all those said information, those said cases in with the death of George Floyd. Let me start off by talking about Miss Taylor, who was an EMT in Louisville, Kentucky. It has been said in an article that the police went to her home, her apartment, to serve a search warrant. And this was a no-knock warrant, so they did not need to identify themselves to enter her apartment. But it is stated by the police that they did say they were there and announced themselves, but family members, friends, whomever are saying, neighbors are saying, no, they did not identify themselves. Now, there was a Miss Taylor and a Mr. Walker inside that apartment at the time of the warrant being served and the ram being used to enter the apartment. They are stating that a Mr. Walker shot at the police, which injured a detective. Shots were then returned into the apartment. At least 20 shots or 25 shots were shot into the apartment and the building itself. Walker was injured, and Miss Taylor was also shot 8 times. And the police were obviously thinking it was Miss Taylor who initiated the first shot out of the apartment. It is a current internal investigation in this case pertaining to Miss Taylor. She's still deemed a suspect at the time of this article that I read that was dated back in March. Walker, 27, is charged with attempted murder of a police officer. The chief of police has stated that it wasn't known that Taylor was armed on that fateful night or how many shots the officers actually fired and suspects fired. And as you see, they use suspects, basically deeming Miss Breonna as a suspect in this incident. Walker was released from jail and is on home incarceration, which infuriated local police union. Okay. So in that case, a no-knock was this is crazy. They didn't have to identify themselves. Of course, they're stating that they did, but it's up for speculation. Did they knock or did they not knock? Or identify themselves. But they're saying they didn't have to knock. It basically means if you don't knock, you don't have to identify yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what is the truth in that case of Breonna Taylor? She was shot 8 times. They also shot into other people's apartments when shooting into her apartment. Mr. Walker takes responsibility as the only sole person shooting out of Breonna Taylor's apartment that day. It's also been known that the person that they were looking for, a Jamarcus Glover, who was using that address for mail, and the police's gumption is that he was also using that apartment for mail, keeping drugs there, and stashing money from the sale of drugs. But they found him at another location 10 miles away before executing the search warrant on Breonna Taylor's apartment. So one has to ask themselves, then why did you go to her apartment? Why did you go to her apartment when you already located the suspect? See, I think you thought drugs were in her apartment. And with that no-knock order, you went on to her apartment anyway, although you just apprehended the suspect, located him elsewhere 10 miles away, but you still went to Breonna's apartment anyway, and here comes this gunfire from her friend, boyfriend, whomever in the apartment because he thought this was a home invasion or someone breaking in. And obviously he's stating that police did not identify themselves, but you all are saying that you did. So who's telling the truth? But I want to know, why did you go to her apartment after you already located the suspect that you were looking for? You were looking for this Mr. Glover. You found him, yet you still went to Breonna's apartment anyway. I think you went there because you thought she had drugs in her apartment to help along with your investigation. And it is also stated that the no-knock is used for cases that are deemed dangerous, futile, and would be a issue of a hindrance if the people inside would flee, this, that, and the other. But let's be truthful. How are you going to flee out of an apartment? Dispose of drugs? Well, worst case scenario, you'd flush them down the toilet. You all use your own discretion on that. Anyway. But it is stated that they were not looking for Taylor's boyfriend, Mr. Walker. No drugs were found in that apartment with inside where Kenneth Walker and Miss Breonna Taylor were staying. And it is stated that the police did not identify themselves. And that is the said information with that. But I'm tying all this in. Ahmaud Arbery. We find out later that Mr. McMichael was an investigator for the state's attorney's office who had come into information pertaining to Mr. Arbery at some point in an investigation. Now, when that investigation was, that has not been released. Is it an issue about the stolen TV? Was it an issue with that said gun charge from high school? I don't know. That has not been revealed. And now we fast forward to this case of Mr. George Floyd, who worked at a nightclub alongside Mr. Chauvin, our dirty Minneapolis cop. They had overlapping shifts, and one has to ask themselves, what is really going on? The owner who sold the business a few months ago, Mr. Maya Santamaria, said at some point they would have crossed paths with each other. You understand what I'm saying? So, how is it you didn't know who he was, Mr. Floyd, on that fateful evening this past week? When you pulled him out of that car, how is it, Mr. Chauvin, you didn't know who Mr. Floyd was? You mean to tell me that big burly guy didn't look like a guy that you passed at some point working there? I find that very hard to believe you didn't know who Mr. Floyd was. Even if you two weren't buddies or hung with each other, I think at some point you would have known of him working at the same bar, El Nuevo Rodeo, which was a bar that has been recently sold by Mr. Maya Santamaria. And Mr. Maya, is basically saying you all worked there and you would have crossed each other's paths. So what's the spoken word? So see, now this case is kind of mimicking the Arbery case to me. Mr. McMichael had to recognize Mr. Arbery from a recent investigation that he worked on a case with the state's attorney's office. Now you fast forward with this case, we find out these two men, a cop and a security guy, who allegedly passed a $20 fake bill, worked at the same nightclub, El Nuevo Rodeo. I'll wait. Then we have the death of Miss Breonna Taylor, which was excessive force use, going in this house, a warrant, which they say they had a no-knock. I'd like to see that in writing. You say you announced yourselves. Mr. Walker is basically saying what? No, you didn't, because he's the only one alive. Breonna's dead. Neighbors are saying, we didn't hear anyone say the police were outside. You shot up into other people's apartments, which could have injured and killed other people. You're looking for another guy, Mr. Glover, but he's not there, and you've already detained him and found out where he was. But yet you still go to her apartment, which, as I state, leads me to think you were looking for drugs. Because you thought, what, they were housed there. And you're still deeming her a suspect, it seems. But Mr. Walker says he's the only one that shot a gun out that apartment in self-defense. Just want to make sure I'm tapping on everything. This is what I want to say about all this mess going on with these African-American people being gunned down, police raiding their apartments. civilians calling the police on black people because they're walking, they're jogging, they're sitting in the park, they're minding their business, they're at the gym exercising, you're wondering why they're in the said gym. Yeah, that's a case out of Minneapolis. Somebody worrying about some black men in the gym, abusing the fact that they're exercising and don't live in the building. You see, people are meddlesome. And people need to stay in their lanes, civilians. Police need to think before going out here to said crimes and want to put an extra notch in their belt and act like their shit don't stink. Mr. Chauvin has 18 complaints against him. 2 were closed with discipline. He received a letter of reprimand, which means nothing. This Mr. Tall Tale, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. That's the little short, sawed-off Oriental one you see in the surveillance video with the bald head. He has 6 complaints. 1 is still open. The others were closed with no discipline. In 2017, he was accused of using excessive force. That case was settled by the city of Minneapolis, and that was an arrest that took place on October 14th. You can look that up. I didn't reveal all that information because I didn't want to be winded. The other 2 officers who were also fired, they have no complaints against them. So mind you, the guy who murdered Mr. Floyd had 18 complaints on record. 2 were closed with discipline. Tao had 6 complaints. 1 currently open as we speak. And a case settled by Minneapolis, the city of Minneapolis, in 2017. And that's the little short, sawed-off one who stood idly by. So we know why you didn't get involved and intervene, because you already had a case settled in 2017 by the city of Minneapolis. And you had 6 complaints against you and 1 currently open at the moment. And now your ass is fired. Miscarriage of justice. Meddling civilians, overzealous cops, not knowing what's actually going on in a situation, a scenario. All these cases I just mentioned are suspicious to me. And what I find really sickening is that people are arrested every day. And I meant to mention this yesterday in my George Floyd video, but you know I had so much to say and reveal, I left this out. But this is my main point. People are arrested every day. Serial killers, murderers, rapists, sadists, people who torture people, drive-by shootings, theft, petty theft, young people, children being arrested for theft, vandalism. Do you see where I'm going with this? And they make it into the jail just fine. They also make it to court just fine. Some are actually released from jail, either on pretrial release, not enough evidence, settled out of court, whichsoever, or released on bond, bail. Why is it that certain Americans can commit a crime, allegedly, because you have to be proven guilty, and they make it to jail, in handcuffs, in the car, or just written a citation? Smaller counties, such as the area where I live in, outside this area, Knox County, outside Knox County, and smaller counties, they don't take you to jail for certain crimes, such as theft. They'll just write your citation and you show up to court. You see where I'm going with that? So how in the hell this grown man gets the police called on him for a $20 counterfeit bill and ends up dead with a video going viral of the murder by a cop? Please answer that. Why do people get arrested every damn day and make it to jail unscathed, unharmed, not tased, not beat up, not strangled, asphyxiated, whichsoever? And the fact that the findings of Mr. George Floyd want to say, well, there was no excessive damage done to his body to prove asphyxiation or strangling, as they state, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He was. We saw it on video. The man's knee was on his neck for 8 minutes, 46 seconds. Damn that autopsy report. Damn the state, the city, fine as Minneapolis with your complaint about this case. and not using the words, "I'm gonna die." Put it all in that complaint. Ante up the charge. The first or second degree murder of George Floyd. These cases are all similar and different in many ways. Police going into an apartment to exact a search warrant of a young lady's apartment because they're looking for drugs, obviously. And the person they're looking for was found somewhere else, but yet you go in there anyway. And she's murdered because the person who's in there with her shoots in self-defense thinking someone's breaking in. A young boy is jogging down in the state of Georgia, and two nosy parkers follow him with rifles and a friend in tow, block the road. He reaches for the gun, self-defense. He doesn't know these people, and yet he ends up dead. Those two men arrested, and the third one arrested as well, excuse me. This case, Minneapolis. These two have worked at the same bar, and one can say, there's no way Mr. Chauvin did not know George Floyd. But yet you couldn't have said to him, "Hey, what you doing getting arrested? You passed the $20 bill? Come on, dude, not you." So you see, there's something funky here too. The store clerk, they say was a young person, just did protocol and called the police. The person who worked the store said, "Well, if I'd have known this and I was here on shift, this would have never happened." Well, if you knew him, he spent money there all the time, you never had problems out of him passing counterfeit money, you could have gave him a free pass, but you weren't there, and the worker who called the police did not. And then there's Mr. Chauvin, who shows up to the scene, who also has worked at a bar alongside Mr. Chauvin at some point, crossed paths with him at some point, heard his name, seen him at some point. Come on now. Minneapolis, I know, ain't that damn big. Was it personal, Mr. Chauvin? Because now we would have to wonder about that. Did you know Mr. Floyd? Is there something about Mr. Floyd you didn't like? We know you don't care for black people wearing your little hat. Make white lives matter great again, whichsoever. Stupid, stupid, stupid stuff. Showing your intent that you don't like black people. That you feel white people are more superior. And you killed that man. You left your knee in his neck for 8 minutes, 46 seconds. You heard him cry out that you were killing him, that he could not breathe. He called for his mother. Your other officer taunted him, and you did nothing. The other officers did nothing. People watched. A girl filmed. You did nothing. These cases are riveting, they are horrific, and they are heinous. And something is going to have to give, or there will be more violence in the street, more graffiti, more vandalisms, more fires, more accidental murders and killings and injuries, because some of you white people refuse to throw in the towel and leave well enough alone. And that is for civilians and police alike. These are terrible cases. And I'm tired of hearing the cases. And I think it is sad that a man has lost his life over a $20 counterfeit bill. And many people get arrested every damn day, and they do not end up dead. They do not end up shot, tased, beat up, strangled, chokehold. They do not. So why did George Floyd end up dead? And that's the million-dollar question. Why is someone jogging end up dead? Why is someone dead? Gunfire to their apartment. Their friend shoots because they think their house is being broken into. And you have to decide, was there drugs there? Was she selling drugs there, keeping drugs? But as I stated, no drugs were found in that apartment. So now one has to wonder, what is the 411 on that case? I will bring you said information on all cases, updates to all cases. We are in turbulent times right now. We still have Corona at bay, and now we have uproar in many cities around the U.S. due to the death of George Floyd. people rioting and protesting in Louisville because of Breonna Taylor. This is a sad time. It's something that's going to have to give, because we as African Americans, we have the right to live, to roam, to walk, to go wherever we want, sit in a park, jog, shop. And this is what I want to say to all of you, white and non-white as well. When you decide that we can no longer jog down the street or walk down the street, we can't go to the gym to exercise, we can't shop, we can't go to school, we can't work, we can't buy a house, we can't live, we can't sit in our cars anywhere, you're basically telling us that we should not exist, that we don't have the damn right to live. And that's what you're saying to us, the police as well, when you profile us because we look suspicious, or someone made a call saying we look like we're doing something, but they don't know what we're doing. They have no idea, and nor do you. And so when you get a call from a white person meddling in something that doesn't concern them and don't know what the hell they're calling about, and then you get an overzealous cop that comes to the rescue to finish us off on an assumption. We have the right to live, to walk, to swim, whether we want to walk at 5 o'clock in the morning, a.m., 5 o'clock in the evening. If I want to sit in a park at any time of day or night, I have that damn right. If I want to walk in an upscale neighborhood where there are $1 million houses, I have that right. If I want to drive my car through there, I have that right. You don't jump in front of cars saying, hey, black person, what are you doing in this neighborhood? I know you can't afford a house in this neighborhood. What are you doing here? You don't do that. You don't tell us when we can fly on an airplane, if we're in first class or not. Do you tell us then, oh, you shouldn't be up here? You can't afford this. You can't afford to go to Harvard. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Oh, how did you get this position in this job? Oh my God, how did you get this? Do you see what I'm saying? Where do you white people draw the damn line of meddling? Police as well. When are you going to realize we are human beings? You brought us here, our ancestors, and we are here. And we are going to walk, live, drive, swim, go to school, work as we deem fit. And you're going to lay off and stop fucking with us. We have the right to be happy. We have the right to live. All black people are not evil. We all don't rob, steal, use drugs, sell drugs. And if we do, just like you white people do it as well, we are entitled to be flawed, and we're also entitled to redeem ourselves. And only God will be the one that judges us for our flaws and our misgivings. Not you or any damn body else. So stop calling the police on people and you don't know what the hell's going on. And you police officers need to stop jumping the gun and using excessive force because you can. You only make $26,000, $22,000 a year, and what, you're mad? You got mental problems. How you pass those damn exams is a mystery to me. A lot of you are bipolar. You have lots of mental issues. You're angry as hell. You're vengeful. You're wicked. You're jealous-hearted. And you go to work every day and you take that shit out on innocent people out here. Go find you another job. Go find yourself another job. And the courts need to buck up and do their job as well, and stop giving these policemen free passes, and stop letting civilians run amok with guns and exacting power that they do not have, and they are not policemen or sheriff deputies to arrest citizens and meddle in their damn business. Enough is enough. Let us live. Let us breathe. We earn the right to live. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.